Demi, can I ask you a selfish question real quick?
Absolutely.
We talked about making your own work and how that's important, generating stuff, because our agents aren't doing anything for us collectively, obviously.
Except mine.
Mine are great. They're working really hard, and I appreciate them. Tim at
same. Love you
Activity
guys.
LA, he's fantastic. You did a very popular podcast, Gilmore Guys, for a while. Did you... As somebody who's hosted 300 episodes of podcasts, I don't know if you've heard, I have made... Thank you, saying. I've made like $100 on those 300 episodes. But you had a very successful podcast. Were you able to sustain yourself for a bit off of that podcast? I imagine you had to have made a little bit.
There was a point at which the money that I made from Gilmore Guys was more than I was making as a writer.
What?
Which is not a thing that happens with many podcasts. And I remember seeing one of the like deposits and going, "This seems wrong." And
what is it from? From the advertising?
Yeah, where's
the advertising.
Okay.
Yeah.
Who deposits it?
The network.
What network?
Our podcast network.
Oh, you were on a network.
Yeah, we were on a network that was dealing with the ads for us and whatnot. But it's like, podcasting is such a weird thing because it is like, unless you are close to the top, it's like you're making fucking peanuts, and it's such a weird thing because you have to work the same amount no matter what. But yeah, there was a time where it was like my source of income, and it always feels weird to just go like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore when that is the case, because it's just like, it's not like artistic integrity or anything, but it's just kind of going like, how much do you want to have your source of income be a thing that you are like gonna have to sort of go like, I guess I'm doing this right now. Any time that it is the case.
Is that more? Sorry, the way you say that, is that more you don't like performing, or was it just the context of the podcast?
I think it was.
I knew you were the not Gilmore Guys fan on it, and that was kind of the gimmick. But.
Yeah, I think for me in particular with Gilmore Guys, the premise of the podcast, by the way, was my friend was a big Gilmore Girls super fan. I had not seen any episodes. We went through every episode. By the end of it, though, I was like, I like this show. I don't like it as much as I feel like I need to be at the head of this like podcast and like have all this attention drawn towards me,
making all this money.
In terms of what Gilmore Girls is. And then at a certain point, it was like kept going on. And we were like, well, we're done with the show. We're going to go on to another show. And then it was like, oh, we're just going to keep doing shows in this vein. And I was like, I like this. I just feel like it's a lot of pressure, and I don't really want to be putting as much energy towards, like, I was always just like, I'm a writer and a comedian, and everything else that I do is just sort of periphery. And I felt like my identity was quickly becoming like, I'm the Gilmore Guys guy. And I was like, I can't do this, or else I'll just be stuck being the person who's discussing someone else's creation instead of just making my own. So I was just like, I think I'm going to stop. At which point, like, every so often I pick up something else that people are like, you're this guy. I'm like, fuck, and I just stopped doing that too. But what a problem to have, that people like the things I'm doing. But
yeah, I do find that funny. Sorry, I would love to be known for a thing. You know what I mean? I would love to be the dad bod guy or whatever.
You can.
Can I do it?
You can. The host of the show, the Dad Bod Guy.
Dad Bod Guy.
Give it up for the Dad Bod Guy.
I refuse to applaud this.
You don't have to. I'll put it in post.
Do you guys worry about that ever being pigeonholed into a thing? Like, I don't know, single cam comedies? Do you want to branch out from that, or do you?
No. I mean, Black Monday was definitely a step in a different direction.
Sure, yeah.
Because I've been lucky enough to work regularly for a few years, and I don't mind. I'm like you. I'm a single guy, big dick, and all the things that you said. Now,
handsome, very wealthy.
Sorry.
Me too.
No, like I don't buy stuff except I go to Clipper games and best team in LA and yes. Oh, sorry, I forgot the question. I started thinking about basketball.
Getting pigeonholed.
Yeah, no, I did. I definitely did, because at one point I was like, well, I don't want to just do half-hour single camera. I want to do
Can I ask
something
why
visual.
not?
Yeah, I don't get what's wrong with being pigeonholed.
I get bored really quickly, because I used to make my own stuff all the time, and then I used to write and direct, and then when I started coming to UCB and I started meeting like UCB performers that were giving me scripts, I was like, these people are way funnier than anything I've ever written. Their stuff's better. I just stopped writing. but there's still like a part of me that I really love the creative process. You could really phone it in as an episodic director. If you've worked on a TV show, you've seen these directors come in. They usually have Tommy Bahama shirts and
make $33,000.
They show up, and they don't have shot lists and all. I hear these stories about these old timers that are getting phased out very slowly.
They're dying.
Yeah, it's just that I want a challenge because I feel really guilty a lot of times that I get to do what I do. So like I want to earn it. So I don't want to do an easy show. I want to do a show where I'm like borderline panic attack on my way to work. I like need that. Yeah, I need that fire.
Yeah. I found in this industry, you got to go towards the fear. If something scares you, you got to do it because then you'll grow.
Really sounds like you're just pitching No Fear shirts. Okay. This whole thing is just a sponsorship. Please, No Fear,
pleasure.
Come back.
30% pain.
Well, can we
NoFear.com.
do the same question for you? Do you feel like at a point in your career, like I am just this kind of person, and I don't want to be seen as this woman?
I don't think I've been lucky enough to do like kind of equal amounts drama and comedy, which I think is kind of rare. So I do feel really, because I started in drama and then I moved here, and like one person, I remember I got feedback once I went on one of the first pilot comedies I went out on. My agent sent me the email. The feedback was, "Not funny, not our lead girl," and I was like, oh, okay, guess I'm not funny.
Sorry, they sent this to you?
She forwarded me the email that was from casting.
Why?
What is the
I don't know.
And then they fired you.
But I was like, oh, I guess I'm not funny.
That's one of the 6.
Is that how you took
For
it?
2 years, I was like, oh, and then it wasn't until like my partner at the time was like, I think you're funny, and I was like, no, I don't think. I'm like, they told me I wasn't funny, and then I realized, oh, I'm funny.
Did you take it that well? Because the way you're describing it is like, oh, I guess I'm not funny.
I take rejection really well, and I think I just have tough skin.
She's been fired by her agent 6 times. And she's killing it.
I was like a model when I was like 15 years old, but like a struggling model. Like I was like, like me with like, I was, when you're from New York, you don't like kind of get into acting. You get into modeling if you're like tall, as opposed, or like theatrical in a way, as opposed to like here that you get into like commercials and stuff. And so I started kind of doing I sound so stupid. Like, Delia's, like catalog, 17 magazine, like Abercrombie stuff. And it was an amazing experience, but there was so much rejection. It basically was rejected every day. Go on appointments, rejection. And so I built like tough skin, which I think was really helpful for this business.
But much like you celebrate every booking, do those rejections still not hurt? Or like, do they?
No, I mean, now I've gotten to the point where I'm never like, I've never been competitive like with other actresses, which I think is pretty rare. And I just think it's bad to do that. So it doesn't make me feel good, but I understand, like, sometimes I just like really, really want a role. But I feel like now I'm to the point where I'm never like surprised at how I do in a room. Now I know how to do the work, and I go in and it's like they either like what I'm bringing and I feel good about what I'm bringing. And if they don't like it, then bye. Yes, of course, if it's like when I get close to something, like there have been a couple of things that I've gotten really close to that at the time were devastating that I didn't get, because I'm just like, oh, that would have just been like, oh, if I just got that. But then you realize like, you create space for something else. And I feel like when I first moved here, so many of my friends, like, I mean, at the time when we sort of were all going out for things, like some friends who I started with are all famous now. I mean, it was like one of those things where I watched every single one of my friends become like a lead of a movie, a television show, and I'm just like kind of sat back and I was like, oh, I guess that's not going to happen for me. And so that's kind of, I think, when I started writing, which for me changed everything and felt like, oh, now I have something to offer when I go into these rooms that I don't think, I mean, someone else is offering something else, but if they want, the Lindsey Kraft special, they'll hire me, and if not, then that's okay.